Everybody, my name is SlippersJack, and this is the beginner's guide. Alright, so a little bit of disclaimer before we get into this. I've never played this game before. This game has been made by Davey Redden. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's the guy who made the Stanley Parable, which is a game that's not really a game, and more of a modern critique on gaming as a whole and an interactive art style. Yeah, I was a big fan of that game. It's a really narrative-heavy game, and if you were at all into the Stanley Parable or Gone Home, or even to an extent something like Soma, that you just kind of pick apart the pieces as you go through, I would suggest playing this game on your own time and not watching me play it, which is awful. I shouldn't be telling you not to watch my videos, but for your own enjoyment and for the sake of the game not losing, I guess maybe its power would be a way to describe it, the first time you see it, you might want to play this on your own time. It's currently $10 on Steam, well, $9.99 USD, but yeah, I'm really excited about this, but yeah. Everyone's mileage may vary, and after that, I'm just gonna jump right into it. It's gonna be a short series, probably only like 4 episodes long. This game's probably not. It's probably like 2 hours to beat this game, which for a lot of people might be a steep ask. $10 for 2 hours of entertainment. I don't know. These people spend that on movies, and a lot of the movies they go to aren't that good anyways. And this hopefully shall be great, but I don't know yet. We'll find out together. Please make sure the audio is on. It's on. Crackling fireplace. Those are my controls.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing the Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Redden. I wrote the Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveywreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
This is not at all what I expected, but I'm pretty excited nonetheless.
Warning. Whisper machine active. Shift destruction imminent.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
Okay. Nope, left is not a good place to go.
Security call breached. Hostile
there.
alien life forms inbound.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin shift evacuation.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room. Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Interesting, okay.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Ooh, so much self-sacrifice in the first, 5 minutes of this game.
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
You're just, you respawn back outside? So you ascend.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Interesting. Okay. Brick walls.
Yep, in this game you can only walk backwards.
That's funny, actually. Okay.
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Code is trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
When she stops and looks, it becomes clearer. But if the future is always behind her, how will she find the strength to confront it?
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
We're now entering Owl One?
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Okay.
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
Interesting.
I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games.
This is awesome.
He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
So, I'm pressing forward.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Okay, let's press enter. Stand on back staring reverse. Plays a loud wireless sound.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
Plays a pair of floating eyes emitting footsteps.
Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
In a normal game we have to scream into a mic every 15 seconds to keep playing. So, it says a key in one game unlocks the door in a completely separate game. I wonder if that's what he's referring to. With that one for it. Coda sounds like a really interesting person.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it. Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're going to see it a lot.
So that just makes it so I can't get back up.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve the puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Okay. Oh, wow.
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, A dull exterior concealed a rich interior, and then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
This is kind of amazing, actually. Ah, we're back. You are now exiting.
Aha! So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
The great and lovely descent. Oh dear.
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development.
A streetwise fool.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
It's actually kind of a cool cafe.
The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Oh, my. Oh, we're okay. The descent. So intriguing. Not at all what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be another critique on how gamers approach everything and how you're conditioned to think a certain way when playing video games. I did not expect this. Whatever this is. So this is not the one I was supposed to land on. And I'm dead. Oh dear. Actually, I'm not dead, because there's no punishment for falling. Interesting. So this gate just opens. Elevator. What if I were to get off here? It wouldn't let me move until it said it was okay. And even then it won't let me go side to side.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that. This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
Interesting. Thus far, Coda sounds kind of like a mad genius. Like, he really is an artist, is what it seems. He's not someone who's going to compromise on his views of things and what he thinks that it should be. It's the same lovely gravel texture from the other one. It's like awfully high res.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
I think, if I had to guess, not knowing Coda as a person and not being any expert on any subject by any means, I feel like it's because you put in a situation where you have to close the door you in and trap yourself with no guarantee of a solution afterwards.
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
You there, did you come from above? What was up there? Yes, there was a world stamped with whiteness. Yes, there was an enormous prison I spent hours in. Yes, there were these floating colored blocks. I'm gonna say number 1. After all, we've only just met. Sorry. That's the world above. You've been there. Now, this is important. Did you have to get through a puzzle with 2 doors and switches? Yes, I did. That was literally the last thing I did before coming here. No, I don't remember having to go through any puzzle. I prefer not to tell you. After all, we've only just met. Let's go 3. What? But you don't understand. We are trapped here. That puzzle is our only escape. We need to get through it. You think you want to go through it, but trust me, you don't. Let me describe it for you. Let me tell you all about what is over there. Actually, I'll tell you how to solve it. Let's do 2. No, that isn't possible enough. I need to actually be there. I cannot simply be told what it is. I must see it myself. I must escape this prison. There must be an ending. There must be an ending. Hello, how did you get there? Was there a puzzle you had to pass through? No, So I feel like he's trying to get me to press 1. That yes, you do not know how to. Do you want to know how to solve it? Or 2, no, I've been right here this entire time. But I'm gonna go ahead and press 2. I suggest you go and see the puzzle sometime. It's not meant to be solved. It can sit in the blank space in the middle. Why would I sit in the black space? Who are you? What happens if I solve it? Who are you? Just go hang out there in that blackness for a bit. You may not like it at first, but grow on you eventually.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level. It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Interesting. This game is connected to the internet. As you walk around, you can leave notes. All notes you see are left by other players. Nice room. Not.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person.
Whoa, holy shit.
In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
Curious.
But it's ironic, isn't it? That in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
This is interesting. And they all orientate themselves to look at your direction when you approach. A free t-shirt, huh? Need other side. Door why so open sesame. Door how open. I'm glad that he let me know that I didn't have to read all these. Otherwise, I probably would, considering they change colors after you read them. Stop, turn back, you further result in misery. Take my hand, let's jump together. There's no way I can make that jump. And I kind of want to look at the painting. I need someone to talk to. This is a note. Don't listen to the other notes. I'm not safe. Stop faking it. Whoever made this has issues. Who are all of you? Stop pretending you are other people. Doesn't mean anything. Devil Tower Star. It's about how this game is pretentious and you all suck. Devil Tower Star. I saw a person walking down there. Now it won't come back. Interesting. I doubt there's a person down there. Can't fall off the edge apparently. So, Coda seems oddly self-aware. Maybe I'll feel real someday. Well, I'm here now. Yeah, we're all here now. Must be a reason for it, though. His terrible secret, he kept it well. I beat the game. More room?
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
A lot of whispering. Downward keep digging.
In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on.
Interesting.
And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
Bunch of typewriters. Howdy with you. Say something. Can't be anything. I just need to say something. Talk to me, please. Why I haven't told you you were talking. Speak, 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 speak.
Okay, this one is tough. It's gonna kinda just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Okay. It's a nice looking table. Same picture as before. Same lovely gravel texture.
See, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
So, same thing. There's the well. What furniture ought to go in the center of the room? Put a giant hole in the grounds. I don't get a choice. Okay. Along the wall of the room. Let's put a huge picture of a horse or like washing machine. 10 stoves. Yeah. So my choices don't matter. A skylight, full ceiling window. Let's open this baby up. I'm thinking a 10 by 12 recessed electric sections. Soft LED ceiling, lights, fluorescent trim. Put live Tesla coils in each corner. Yeah. And a table. You need a table. Who are you? What calculator I'm pretty sure none of my choices are making any difference. Tables were invented in 1935.
There's a bit more to this one, but still it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake.
And I cannot carry on. Oh wait, no, it's a maze.
So okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
Hello, please walk forward. This guide will enable you to escape any prison environment. Follow instructions carefully, take care that you remember each step. First, click on this table. Good, now go to the photo frame and click to turn it slightly. Now turn off the floor lamp in this room and turn it back on. Now go to the left side sofa and move it over a little. Finally touch the shelves. That's it. In a real prison, the escape will now open. Return to the start to be taken back to your prison. Curious.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen of them. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this. To see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop. That particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created. And the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
So it's some hedges, a small town, a lamppost. And a phone booth. Hello? Who is this? Hey, it's me. I'm you from after you escaped the prison. You're me? So you were trapped in this prison too? Yep, I was in the furniture maze. Yep, I was in the
It's a conversation.
Yep, I was in the
And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
That's where I am right now. I'm so glad to know that I get out eventually. What's it like to escape? Actually, I'm already forgetting what being in prison was like. It's strange, but in a way, I kind of miss being in prison. feel wildly emotional at the same time. If you feel any different, sometimes I'm scared I'll get out and things will be exactly the same as before. The actor does change. I don't feel like the same person at all. Oh, good. That's so nice to hear. It makes me feel really, really happy. Age just kind of does that, you know? I'm still me, but I'm not somehow. It's hard to describe. Remembering who I do and who you are right now. Last. That's all depressing. Let's do 2. Wait, if you're me, then did you get a call from another version of you when you were trapped? No, I think I'm the first person to call back. Then can you tell me how to get out? Maybe I can come find you. What do I have to do? To get out, you need to tell me how you feel right now. Let's do 2 again. What? That will free me? How does that work? Listen, you can't know until you're out, but I promise it works. Just tell me how you feel. It will make sense. Okay, I feel afraid that nothing will ever change. Go on.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice? So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
Curious. Very, very curious. Well, I'm actually going to
To
stop.
me, this environment
No,
is
wait.
meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the 2 doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Okay. I must actually stop the recording right here. This has been extremely interesting. Not at all what I expected, but I'm actually enjoying it thus far. It's a real interesting look into the mind of Coda. But yeah, my name is SlippersJack, and thank you for watching. And I will put a link to this game in the description below. And yeah, I will see everyone next time, and have a wonderful day.